Hey, this is Tom Nash, and I'm going to be here with you for the next 5 minutes making sense of this crazy market. Don't click nothing, don't smash nothing, and mainly, don't buy nothing. Let's get this thing started.
As expected, it's 7.9% for year-over-year inflation, following 7.5 that could get revised. 7.9, we go to the Wayback Machine to find a higher level of inflation. You're looking at 8.4% in June of 82 as your comp.
Okay, so let's start with inflation. Yo, inflation is still here. Yeah, even though we talked about Ukraine for the past week, much like that uncle that comes for 2 days and stays for 2 months, inflation never left. For the past 2 weeks, we've been covering Ukraine, and rightfully so, but inflation is still here, and what better way to get reminded of another CPI cycle numbers. And the CPI is going to come out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time today, and according to all expectations, we're looking about, 7.8, 7.9%, which is, incidentally, it's going to be a new 40-year high. Unbelievable. But, look, it's not going to include any of the oil prices, any of the commodities craze. I mean, that comes later. It doesn't really get included in the CPI. So the real question is how much of a reaction the market is going to have here, because nothing dramatic is going to come out the CPI. It's kind of a no-brainer. We all know it's going to be anywhere between 7.7 and 8. It's going to go up. We know that the Fed's kind of 2% goal is now completely in the toilet. It's just a matter of time until they come out and officially say that, well, we're not going to hit 2% this year. We know that. The question is, look, with everything that we just know and the fact that it's not going to be dramatic, will the market overreact? Because the market tends to be very erratic, at least for the past 6 months. It's been very crazy. A little bit of good news, the market flies up. A little bit of not so good news, the market flies down. It's really hard to tell. I honestly don't know what's going to happen, but for me, the most concerning part isn't the CPI numbers, which are kind of already we know about. It's how the market is going to react. And it's going to be very interesting to see. And you have to understand that with this amount of money on the sideline and this amount of fear and kind of neurotic behavior, that's a recipe for a craziness. So I'm not going to make any predictions. All I'm saying is I'm going to look at the market, not really on the report, because we know what's going to come out of the government. The question is how Mr. Market is going to respond. And I used to have a neighbor like that. He used to basically scoop up dog shit from the street and leave it at doorsteps of people he didn't like in the building. I mean, we never knew what he's going to do. Look, jokes aside, the market has been going crazy, and there's no better example than yesterday. Mr. Market actually sent oil prices down.
Nice.
For what seemed to be for no apparent reason. Why? Well, now we know why. Apparently, UAE, the United Arab Emirates, the second half of the duo that is the UAE and Saudi, the two countries that pretty much control OPEC, or at least are very dominant in OPEC. That's fine. US is very dominant in NATO. It is what it is. So basically, the UAE came out yesterday and had one of its officials basically say, well, we don't mind increasing productions to reduce the price. Essentially, OPEC, it's a cartel. It's not a free market. They basically determine the price of oil by, increasing or decreasing production. So basically, he came out yesterday and said, well, it might be in our best interest to actually help you guys and, make more of it so you don't have to pay $140, a barrel. The problem is that that's only one opinion. The other opinion that matters is what Saudi will say. But Saudi, apparently, is not even picking up the calls from Biden. It's that bad. The relationship has completely been fractured ever since they feud upon, some political issues. Not going to get into it in this video. I mean, y'all don't really care. But Saudi and Biden, not friends right now. So Saudi isn't picking up the phone. So the question is, why did the UAE say that? And how plausible it is for them to actually get it done? And honestly, I don't know, and nobody does. But the kicker here is that I think the UAE knows something. Otherwise, they would not have come out now and said this to look like the good guys. Because look, we're talking about some of the world's best salesmen. These guys are really sharp. You know exactly what I'm talking about. These are the same guys who will sell you like a $500 pashmina in some market, in some country you've never heard about, which you just visited for a week. I mean, it's the cost of doing business. So these are the world's top traders. They know how to play you and dominate you. That's their business. And if they come out now and actually say that, that means they must, or at least there's a chance, They know something about Russia, Ukraine, maybe slowing down. I don't know. It's just a theory. Who knows? And speaking about people who know things ahead of time, let's talk about Palantir. So there's a really interesting chart right now circulating on Reddit and on Twitter. In fact, I retweeted it myself, showing you how since the price have started going down from the mid to high 20s in November, all the way down to what we're seeing right now, which is pretty much the DPO price, the percentage of ownership by institutional investors have been going up quite significantly. In fact, since November, the amount of institutional holders in Palantir have gone up by 50%. These are the sharks who buy when everybody's panicking. So while retail is going out and basically selling out, institutionals are going up. And I've said this is going to happen months ago. I tweeted about it and I told you, hey, as price comes down, institutionals are going to swoop in, buy cheap, wait for 6 months to a year, sell it back to the same people who were selling and panic getting out of it. It's exactly what's going on. Now look, to be fair, the pool isn't big for institutionals, so a 50% increase sounds like a lot, but in fact, it's an increase from 500 to 700 or 750 or 780, depends on how you measure it and when. There's still 2 billion shares, so it's still like 36% of the float. It's still dominated by retail. And as long as it's still dominated by retail, we're going to see crazy volatility. A day with +8, the next day -8. Who knows? But hey, this is just the cost of doing a DPO, a direct public offering. When you don't do an IPO, there's not any institutionals in it. However, if this trend continues and institutionals keep pouring in, the future for Palantir looks very bright. But then again, it's a slow process. It's not going to happen overnight. And talking about things that happen overnight, Amazon announced a 20-to-1 split. Yeah, a 20-to-1 split and a massive $10 billion buyback. Now, look, I hate gimmicks, and to me, this thing smells like a gimmick. I love Amazon as a company. I love Amazon as a stock. But this smells like a gimmick. Obviously, the stock price went up. Not a huge surprise. But look, a stock split is meaningless. It means nothing. I don't understand why people are getting excited about it. It's like somebody selling you a piece of sand from your garden. It's a piece of sand from your garden, my guy. It's meaningless. A stock split. In fact, I would argue that this sand from your garden is more meaningful than a split. A split means nothing. In fact, it just adds more retail to the action, which is not a healthy thing, as we just talked about in Palantir. Now, as far as the share buybacks, it's starting to sound like a Warren Buffett company. Look, if Amazon is in growth mode, there's no way they would be buying back shares. The only time you buy back shares is where you're basically saying, hey, I have nothing better to do with this money. I can't grow. It's not a positive sign. Buying back shares and splitting, it feels like a gimmick. Not a huge fan of this move. I would much rather Amazon actually deal the real elephant in the room. They need to split up AWS from the retail business. The retail business, which I still love, needs an overhaul. Because look, factually speaking, the retail business for the past year have been completely doo-doo. It has not been performing. It's just fact. Now, I do believe they can do it, but there's a huge difference between AWS, between the content world that they're doing, between the ecosystem that they're building. Why do these businesses need to be together under the same company? They're in completely different stages of their life. They need different things. A split is what we need to be talking about, but not this split. Not a stock split, a spin-off. That's the question we need answers to, not a stock split and a share buyback, my guy. You know, just my opinion, like everything I just told you here. It's not financial advice, just my own opinion. Might be inaccurate, might be wrong, might be the ramblings of a madman. You missed that, right? And of course, if you have any questions for me, let me know below in the comments and I'll try to respond as much as I can. See you tomorrow.